Howdy, folks. I hope you are all well today, and you're all keeping out of trouble. Hey, it's been raining all morning, like that crappy drizzle, cold rain nonsense, and all of a sudden now it's like, ta-da! You will not have rain. You will have sun right in your eyes. It's like, ah. So it's a bit much. So and then it gets, God, it's blinding. That's the one bad thing about Texas. When it's the winter, the sun is very low in the sky in the morning and the evening. So during your commutes, depending on which way you're going, you just utterly get blinded. Hey, Loretta, what's going on? So here's a hypothesis. So right now, we have Governor Abbott has the National Guard on the border. We all know that. And he's made a statement saying the president is not doing his job. President saying, no, this is a federal matter. The Supreme Court says you can't put the barbed wire up. Didn't say you can't secure the border. Actually, the Border Patrol has access to the park in question. There's actually video on Instagram and on X that shows the National Guard opening the gate so Border Patrol can go in and out. They're just securing it in general from people running around the park. So, realistic, God, this road sucks. I say that every time I do a morning live. I hit the same stretch of road. I'm like, this road sucks. The question is, hey, Loretta, again, what can really come of this? So, there's a lot of comparisons to the civil rights movement in the 1960s, where I believe it was Alabama, called up the National Guard to prevent the black students from getting into the school, and then the Eisenhower nationalized the National Guard, put them under federal control, and ergo removed them. But at the time, so here's hey Neil, what's going on? There goes my chat again. So it put Neil and Loretta's comment on top of each other, and it looked like gibberish. By the way, I'm not the only channel. I've had multiple channels reach out to me telling me they're having issues with their live streams. I don't know if they're picking on the preparedness folks or conservatives or liberals, or if they just screwed up their own software and causing us issues. But anyway, I digress. So they're comparing the situation to the 1960s, where, sorry guys, where President Eisenhower nationalized the National Guard in order to enforce Supreme Court rules to allow black students into the various universities, right? But I don't think that's a good, I don't know if, I forgot the word, not anagram, comparison, let's just say that. So what could happen? So I think it's part showboating, part Texas is pissed off, and because Abbott's been being a shit to DC for the last year and a half, so this is not new. I think he just finally said, you know, you guys aren't doing what you need to, so we're gonna do it. No, and oops, to your point, I mean, they're all politicians, right? So I take them with a grain of salt. So the question is, how would it play out from here? So it's an election year, we all know that. We knew it was going to be tumultuous. So Abbott's making himself look good to most of his constituents. Does Biden want to nationalize the National Guard? You have to have a legal justification, and you have to have an emergency. Now, he has a legal justification with the SCOTUS ruling. He doesn't have an emergency other than if he says, well, we're being invaded, but if we're being invaded, well, that's why the Texas Guard is out there in the first place. So it doesn't look good either way. The smart play for everyone is to make a deal, and Biden says, fine, take your guard off, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z, and, you know, basically they make some kind of deal where everyone gets their little check mark, and then they go about their little campaign trails. Abbott just got reelected, so that Washington's stuck with him for 4 more years. So that's a possibility. Now, again, with the comparison to the civil rights movement, a lot of people are saying, well, Eisenhower, in order to allow black students into those universities back then, he nationalized the Guard to protect the students so they could go into the school. But at the time, the nation was not under foreign threat. There was no illegality. In other words, the National Guard was protecting the rights of Americans to go to school at the time. As contentious as it was in the 60s, that's what they were doing. What's happening now is not the same thing. Nationalizing the Guard to allow an illegal act to occur is different. I don't know if you guys are tracking me. So what they were doing at the time was saying, hey, the black students, minorities, they have a right to go to school at these same universities. We're enforcing the law so U.S. citizens can exercise their rights. Whose right are we exercising if they take the Guard off of the border? We're protecting illegally entering foreign immigrants who are not going to the 28 something or other legal entry points where they can go up and give papers and say, I would like to be here in America, and they get their stamp, they get their fingerprint, they get processed for about a week, and off they go. But at least they're in the system, right? They've been recorded. So if Biden, again, this is pure hypothesis, if the president nationalizes the National Guard to shut Texas down, but is nationalizing the Guard in order to allow an illegal act to occur that's contrary to federal law, could the commanders then say that the president has given an unlawful order? And could the commandant of the Texas Military Department basically declare that the president has given an unlawful order and they will not comply? Now, if that happens, that could be very interesting. That would be a constitutional crisis, because now you have, and Abbott set it up in his letter. So again, sorry guys, I'm seeing you guys are commenting, and the comments, I need to take a screenshot of this. The comments, hold on, I'm going to take a quick screenshot here. All right, the screenshots are coming out like gibberish. Like Random and Royal Lioness, you both commented, but your comments were literally on top of each other. And the only reason I could tell you both comment is because I could see the emoji, your icons, but your comments were squished on one another. So yeah, so this is not a good comparison. The civil rights nationalization of the Guard versus what's happening now. Because at the time, the National Guard was defending the rights of black Americans to go to college without being, attacked by whoever, the KKK or whatever other asshole was there at the time. But now, God, the sky looks like shit. But now, you would be nationalizing the Guard to prevent a governor from enforcing the law to protect American citizens and the legal migrants who are here. So could those commanders then say, you know what? This is not legal. This is not a lawful order. Right? Because again, the officers and the enlisted, the NCOs, when you take your oath as enlisted or an officer, it's to obey your commanders, your president, and to protect the Constitution as well as to protect the nation from enemies, foreign and domestic. If the president's saying, no, leave the border, you're allowing a foreign entity into the domestic realm. And if you're doing that, can a commander basically say, no, you're asking me to contradict my own order. I'm allowing a foreign entity into the country that's not been vetted. Therefore, your order is unlawful. And that's where it could get ugly. Again, this is purely, I'm trying to go within the framework of what my knowledge of the federal and states, as well as the Constitution. And now, of course, you have Texas, has the Texas State Guard, which for the most part, because I was part of it for years, answers to the governor. It falls under the military. I mean, it's structured, background checks, photos, the whole 9 yards. It's like a mini National Guard. They've been oriented primarily for civil defense, but there is a slew of veterans in there, quite a few. You know, you have 2, 3, 4,000 state guards personnel who are not National Guard. They answer to the state and to the legal, and if necessary, they assist the constitutional judge and sheriff of the respective counties. So then what happens? And now since 9/11, there are now 30-something states that have a state guard or state defense force. And I know this because I've gone and trained with these guys. So, and it's legal. I mean, we're training with cops and firefighters. We're like another civil service entity. So, again, it's difficult, and I know you guys look like you're having a great conversation, and all I'm seeing is this gibberish on the screen, which kind of sucks because I want to respond to you, but I can't see it. You know, it just, how can it go? It can go a lot of different ways. Now, the governor can say, well, I will withdraw the Texas National Guard, but you must put X number of Border Patrol and you must enforce X, Y, and Z. And they may make a deal in Congress to make that happen. Hold on. Mexico would just release and let the foreign fighters roam and take over America. I can't see the whole comment. Now, Mexico has a problem too, right? Because everyone's coming through Mexico to get here. So Mexico now has an illegal immigration problem. The gangs from Guatemala and Nicaragua are now in Mexico fighting with the cartels, as if Mexico's military didn't have enough shit to deal with. Me personally, I think they should have left the 5 cartel families alone and just said, hey, look, y'all don't come kill Americans. Y'all want to, if you smuggle drugs in and we catch you, we're going to bust you. And if we don't catch you, oh fucking well. And because at least the cartel families had rules. Now we have like 38 little cartels and they're all assholes killing each other. So I think we kind of screwed up there. It was like when they broke up the Italian mafia, right? Then you had 27 little gangs in New York for years instead of 5 families that kind of controlled everything. But, you know, hey, things happen. So they could make a deal. They could, Biden may just not touch it. Is 5.7 effective to cartel armor? I don't know. 5.7 is actually, Joe Morgan might want to comment on that because I know he likes his firearms. The 5.7 is meant to defeat a lot of soft armor. I don't know about the plates. I think the big plates will survive, those 3A and level 4. But I think you're like generic pistol caliber soft armor. I don't know how well it's going to do, especially if you get hit with 20 of the things, right? Because the 5.7s kind of fire at a high rate. Hey, book club. And again, folks, for those of you coming in late, my chat is gibberish again, and it really is pissing me off. I'm going to take a screenshot of what I just saw here. I'm going to show that to you guys. I'll post it later because it's just garbage. Like, I can't read anything. So anyway, folks, a lot of people are getting very excited. They're getting a bit hyperbolic, as Prepper Now would say. They're getting hyperbolic, and he's right, because they're like, oh, it's civil war, it's death, it's... Holy cow, I'm parked all by myself in a parking lot, like, and this person came zooming past me to get to a store, literally has about 50 yards on either side of me on the parking lot, and passed me by like a foot. I don't understand the logic of people. Anyway, there are a lot of ways it could go. Now, what does this mean for us, right? Past few days, there have been posts on the Civil War. Book Club, I see you're posting something, but I saw half of it. Like, it literally looks like, remember the old typewriter where you type and then if you didn't do the carriage return and you typed again, you type one sentence over the other, and so it just looked like gibberish. That's basically what I'm seeing right now. It's really annoying the shit out of me. And it's not anything we're doing. It's whatever's going on there. But point being, there are a lot of ways it can go. And it could escalate, right? They could nationalize the Guard to shut Abbott up. The National Guard, being residents of the state, may say, you know what? Your order's unlawful. We're not going to obey. Which then DC could say, well, that's treason. And then the National Guard will say, no, you're committing treason. You're not obeying your oath. And then it can go downhill, right? That's one extreme. The other extreme is they try to nationalize the Guard and fail because it doesn't meet the criteria, right? You have a legal ground, but there's no emergency unless the president declares an emergency to allow the illegals in, which is unlawful. So then again, the commanders say, well, that's an unlawful order, and then they don't obey, right? So his power is not absolute in that respect. It's hard to say. Now the president may say, okay, take the National Guard out, and I will agree to put X number of federal troops on the border, and they work out a deal. It could be, there's a lot of showboating right now, so it's kind of hard with all the political stuff going around it to see what's happening inside. I do know that civilians are being victimized in this process. So the only ones who are really winning are the cartel, right? Because they're getting paid to drop people at the border. In the meantime, they're also having these people bring drugs. Then they're shipping drugs elsewhere because the Border Patrol and the National Guard are thinned out. And then when Texas locks down the border, they go and beat up on Arizona and New Mexico and go that way. Which, when I went to Arizona, they were having all sorts of issues at the border. And even that governor was saying, hey, you're not doing your job, to the president. And she's a Democrat. So there's a lot of different ways it can go. But I have not seen this in my lifetime. I've not seen a formal state, especially one as big as Texas, in alignment with 25, 30 other states, all say, you know what? No, fuck that. We're going to send our National Guard to help you. Now, there was one person speculating, oh, it's a ploy so that the president can declare martial law. Always a possibility. But again, that's going to have to go through Congress. And there's other boxes that require checks, because then you get into posse comitatus regulations, and there's certain stipulations there. And if you don't follow those, then the states can really say, hey, you know what? You violated the Constitution, and YOLO, peace out. So again, lots of ways it can go. But I'm curious to see, because today's the 26th, yeah. So today at 5 is when the Texas National Guard's supposed to pack up and go. The National Guard is not packing up. They're putting more shit. One commander, and this is through the grapevine, I don't know how official it is, SCOTUS said you cannot put the razor wire because of whatever reason. So he said, okay, so he took the razor wire out, and then they put shipping containers. Technically, it's not razor wire, right? He followed the letter of the ruling. So now there's speculation that they're going to send a bunch of shipping containers and replace the barbed wire with shipping containers, because the SCOTUS said you can't have the barbed wire. So they're like, okay, well, we'll take the barbed wire away. You didn't say we could put something else here. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. This is super interesting. And it's kind of exciting on the one hand, historically speaking, to see this stuff. But on the flip side, it's also concerning because there are a lot of stupid people in charge all over the place, many of whom don't have skin in the game, right? It was like the sanctuary cities, other than California, who own their own shit. All the sanctuary cities are up north. They were nowhere near the border until Abbott said, oh, you want sanctuary? Here you go. And then the southern states started shipping people up north, and then the northern cities freaked out. And it's like, well, what do you think we're doing? They're like, send them back to Texas. No, they weren't from here in the first place. More than likely, they weren't from Mexico either. Mexicans can come here. I've said that before. The way we go to Cancun and get drunk on the beach, they come here and get drunk in the clubs in Dallas. Like, it's not a big deal for Mexicans to come here, and we go there, and the Canadians get drunk everywhere because Canadians like to drink. And well, so do we, but they're coming from places that really don't like the Mexicans or us. So now both countries have a problem because of this stupidity. We'll see. We'll see. But I think I hope I'm wrong, or I hope I'm right. I could be wrong, but the talk of CW2, of that kind of situation, although there's a lot of rhetoric, I don't think we're there yet. What actually scares me more than all this stupidity here is the fact that because the country is divided, if you've read 1984, war is peace, slavery is freedom, right? The best way to create peace in a country is to go to war with someone else. We're picking fights with Iran, we're picking fights with Russia, we're picking fights with China. We're bombing Houthis. We're doing a bunch of stuff, and that concerns me. Foreign fighters looks like when ISIS took over. Daggone it. I see your comments, but I'm seeing half of them. America, all these foreign fighters. So what's funny is the ones I'm seeing in my part of Texas are all like Cuban and Venezuelans who just left communism, and they're like, no, stop bringing them here. We don't want them. I don't want these ISIS fighters raping my daughter, right? They don't want this. Personally, I say we keep all the Cubans and Venezuelans and send Antifa to Venezuela and let them be fucked over there. That's just my opinion. But although, Miss Brittany Griner wound up in jail in Russia, her and her and she's all puffed up, and she came back and she stands for the Pledge of Allegiance now. I think she understands. So, more power to her. I mean, that was a painful growing experience. But again, folks, the CW2 talk hypothetically is exciting. I would like to think people are not that stupid, because the truth is it's not going to be like our Civil War, right? We like to look at our Civil War and say, oh, it was North and South, and there was kind of like a line. It wasn't set in stone, but you kind of knew the Mason-Dixon line was where things were. And what's funny, Maryland, which was a Union state, actually was a slave state, and Lincoln ordered the army at the time, because there was no Secret Service, to arrest all the politicians who were pro-slavery before the war broke out, to prevent Maryland from then becoming a Confederate state. So just a little messed up bit of history there. Good play by him, but not very cool. But a modern situation like that would not be like that, right? Look at Oregon, right? Portland. Portland's very blue, right? We all know that, right? That's where all the Antifa riots go. The rest of the state is very red. And believe it or not, there's lots of guns in the state. So what would happen there? Would the red counties form a militia and march on Seattle and take Seattle over? And the cops have been shit on in Seattle. The cops might actually side with the red side and say, like, you know what? No, these Antifas have been hurting our guys for 5 years, so screw them. We'll throw them in jail. You know what I mean? It's going to be a county versus county, neighbor versus neighbor, but in a very real sense. We use the American Civil War as a comparison to what would happen in the modern day, and that's not correct. I honestly believe the true comparison would be like what's happening in Khartoum in Sudan right now, where you have different militias who are aligned politically fighting the other militias in the streets randomly, right? So you could be in a safe zone today and you get out of your house tomorrow and there's a fight in front of your house. So that would be very ugly. That would be pretty horrendous, actually. So what would you have, like gangs from big cities, Chicago, Dallas, starting to raid the counties around them for resources? The counties will organize at some point, right? So then what do? They linear ambush the gangbangers as they come into the county and leave them dead on the road. Right, it would be something like that. It would be very ugly. So I would hope that doesn't come to pass, because that would be kind of horrendous. And then, of course, you'll have federal troops out there trying to control whatever the hell they can, and it would just be ugly. But I'm curious to see if the president pulls the nationalization card of the Guard, and if the Guard of Texas will then say, we're not going to comply because you're nationalizing us in order to allow an illegal act to occur, and therefore it's unlawful. And it kind of makes you wonder how it's going to play out. I'm really curious. I mean, my curiosity is totally piqued on this. But today is the 26th. 5 o'clock is the deadline. Right now, there are multiple truck convoys headed to Eagle Pass and the border to block the roads in support of our troops and the police, and everyone else is trying to do the right thing here. So now you have a whole nother faction involved. So I'm curious to see where this is going to go, y'all. This will be very interesting. I might, if my timing is right, I might catch the convoy coming through to El Paso, and if I do, I might grab a duffel bag if I can figure out where they are and jump in and follow one of the convoys to Eagle Pass for a day. I will see how that pans out, because I'm super curious. It'll be a drive for me, as if I haven't driven enough this month, but that'd be super interesting to witness. And if I get into the state park, I can fly my drone around and maybe get some footage, but we'll see. Anyway, guys, just something to think about. I don't think it's the end of the world right now. I actually am curious to see what legal wranglings are going to happen before they get to something ugly. And hopefully, again, hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully it's, it just turns out to be a lot of political puffery. But you guys be safe out there. Be careful. Continue to do your food. Continue to prep. Pay off debt. The usual things I tell you to do that I'm doing, or I'm trying to do. Because any disruption, a major disruption, is going to shut down the trucking, going to shut down supply chain. They're going to have traffic stops everywhere. You know what I mean? We had it happen during Rona. We had like a dry run, so to say, for Rona. So now you guys kind of have a template of what happens to the supplies in the stores when something pops off. So anyway, guys, I'm going to leave you with that. Again, I'm not freaking out. I'm actually more super curious about what political maneuver each side's going to make to see where everything goes. We'll see where it goes, ladies and gentlemen. But look, you guys be good, be safe out there. Stay on budget. And be careful on the roads. The economy is still shit, and there's a lot of street crime. We've already had at least 2 incidents of people shooting criminals because the criminals tried to carjack, the mom loading her little girls into the car. And unfortunately, mom had a pew, and that ended badly for the asshole. But, there are things happening. So, guys, be safe, be careful. Stay calm, watch what's going on. There's a lot of little things happening at once. And, if you see something that may affect you personally, that's the kind of information you want to act on and say, okay, this can affect my supply chain. This could affect law and order in my neighborhood, and then react accordingly. But guys, be careful out there, ladies and gentlemen. Be safe. I will see you later on. Take care.